Chapter 1. The Escape. Ainu opened her eyes. It was still dark. She rubbed the sleep from her eyes and looked at the window. There were blackout curtains in every room in her home, and her bedroom was no different. She could not tell if it was night or day. She lay there for several more minutes deep in thought. What had happened to her? What happened to her parents, and how could she escape this hellhole of a prison? She thought about what her grandparents had told her of the time of her great-grandparents and the cataclysm that had befallen the whole of humanity. She thought of the colonists and hopes of far-off star systems. It was 200 years since the Great Reset, and Ainu was a prisoner like every other human being on this god-forsaken planet. Earth, the great home of humanity. How did it happen to our wonderful world? How could our ancestors do this? Ainu stopped her thoughts immediately, as she knew fine well about the Echelon Sentinel that was set up to monitor every thought and select certain phrases for further investigation by the thought police. She knew she had to escape from her ivory prison, but knew that such thoughts were not just outlawed but were punishable with pain and even death. Ainu thought to herself, "It's my 16th birthday today. I'm not going to lay here and wait for them to come and drag me out of bed and into work again." With an effort, Ainu got out of bed and went over to the window, where she opened the curtains and saw that it was dawn. Ainu knew that they would be here soon, so she got dressed and went downstairs and looked in the fridge. There was not much in, so Ainu decided to make cornflakes and sat at the table eating. She heard the front door open and waited for them to come into the kitchen. The door opened and 3 people walked in. 2 of them were women and 1 was a burly male soldier. The woman carried bags and proceeded to empty them on the kitchen table and started to fill up the fridge and cupboards with the food supplies they had brought. None of them spoke a word to Ainu until the woman finished what they were doing. Then the burly male said, "Right, Ainu, we know it's your birthday today, but work is work and your presence is required in the dark room." The smallest of the women, who Ainu knew well, then said, "Come on Ainu, let's go. We are late today. It's time we went, and this time we can do without any more commotions." Ainu grunted and got up. "Okay then, let's go, but remember, if I don't see anything, it's because of what I told you 2 days ago. I need more medicine to enter those states, but you lot have had me eating so much and working so often the effects are not the same anymore. I have built up too high a tolerance to the medicine, and I need a holiday from work for the visions to come back strong again." The taller of the 2 women, who Ainu had never met before, said, "We know this, Ainu. This will be the last journey we need you to do for 2 weeks. So come on Ainu, let's go now. Major Bill is waiting." Ainu went and got her jacket and went towards the door, quickly followed by her 3 guests. Outside they headed for the black security car that was her chauffeur to and from work every 2 days. She was tired of this and longed for a better life in the stars with the colonists and, dare forbid, the rebels. It was rumored on Earth that the rebels had organized themselves and were a force for the corporations, but no one dared to hope for rescue, as this usually meant a pain attack. Ainu got in the back of the car with the woman that she knew. She had never asked her name, but she was always nice towards Ainu, so they got on well enough. The other woman got in the front with the soldier who drove them out of Ainu's street and onto the main motorway in Sector 4. They headed to the checkpoint, where they stopped to show their ID badges and then proceeded to drive on into Sector 5. They passed 2 more checkpoints before coming to the banking guild sector, where they arrived at the building that was Ainu's workplace since she was captured 2 years previously. 2 soldiers dressed in black with the banking guild's insignia on their shirts approached the stopped car and opened Ainu's door, whereupon Ainu got out and walked into the tall dark building that she hated with every breath. The 2 women got out of the car and followed Ainu into the building. Inside they walked to the stairs and went up to the 3rd floor, where they walked along the corridor that was painted white but had no windows and only artificial light. Ainu thought, godless buildings for godless people. She hated the banking guild and all the corporate guilds that had been set up since the Great Reset, and longed to see her parents again, if at all. "There you are. Where have you been? You're 1 hour late." "Ainu, here, take the medicine on the table and let's get this ball on the road," barked Major Bill. Bill was a soldier in the banking guild and was ever loyal to their cause. Whatever that was, Ainu had thought profit and greed was all they cared about. "I told you, Bill, I need a rest for a while, or I won't see anything again." The gods are not conducive to teaching you ways to get one over on your enemies, as I have explained on too many occasions before. Ainu walked to the table and picked up the bar of plant medicine and said, "This is the last time I will cooperate with this madness, Bill. It's wrong and you know it. Stop your whining, Ainu, and remember what happened to you last year for your similar insolence," said Bill. The woman who Ainu knew then said, "Bill, she is right, we have not seen anything for 2 weeks now, we have to let her have a break from journeying." The other woman who Ainu did not know then said to Bill, "Bill, Ainu is not a soldier to be bossed about. She is a guest of our company, and we must treat her with the appropriate respect for her stature as an oracle." "Fine. Okay, Ainu," said Bill bitterly, "please take the medicine and let's see what happens. If we draw a blank, then you can go home early and have that holiday for 2 weeks. Ainu ate the plant medicine and went and sat in the chair in the corner of the room. She heard Bill say to the strange woman, "We must never show disunity in front of Ainu again. I believe she can see but is holding back from us. If it was up to me, I would put her in pain until she sees something." Whereupon the strange woman said, "That's enough, Bill. It's not just Ainu that could feel pain." The woman then approached Ainu and sat down next to her. "I believe you must wait for half an hour for the medicine to work. So, Ainu, what do you think we should do if your goddess doesn't want to show us anything even after your 2 weeks holiday? Do you think we should then send you back to Sector 1 with all the ruffians?" Ainu answered, "The ruffians are my kin, don't you know that? I was kidnapped from my parents by your henchmen and taken to Sector 4, from where I cannot get back to my family or friends. And for how long do you expect me to work for the banks? We all have our bosses, Ainu, and we all feel the same pain if we err. So, I would ask your goddess to help us see something for the recordings if anything. It would be a waste to be an oracle and have no one see your visions." Ainu then went into the dark room and said, "Okay, here we go, Bill. Just for you I will go in deep." Bill snorted over the airways, "Hurry up, Ainu, I know petulance when I hear it." After 3 hours of no visions, Bill finally threw his arms up and said, "Right, that's it then. Once again, we see nothing. Ainu, consider yourself lucky I am not in charge of this journey, as I think a course of pain medicine would work just as fine as the plants." The strange woman then said, "Okay, that's enough, Bill. Ainu, let's go home, you can have your 2-week holiday now." With that, Ainu and the woman she knew both left the building and headed to Ainu's home, where the woman said, "Sorry for Bill, Ainu, he's an ass we all hate, but he's above us in rank, so there is nothing we can do about him while you are here." With that, the car drove off, leaving Ainu wondering, "Why I am here? Fuck, I am always going to be here." She then turned and went into her home. Inside, Ainu headed for the living room and turned the television on. She plopped down onto the sofa and watched the news. It was all about the rebel explosion at the mining guild sector. The newscaster was deriding the rebels for crimes against humanity and other such crimes as only the warped minds of the deluded establishment could dream up to describe the Earth's freedom fighters, thought Ainu. She went into the kitchen and got a snack from the fridge, then went back into the living room. She spotted a small piece of paper on the mantelpiece and picked it up. There was very small writing on the paper. It said, "My little goddess." That was Ainu's grandmother's nickname for Ainu when she was a young child. Where the hell did that come from, thought Ainu. She immediately put the paper into the bin and went and sat on the couch and stared at the television screen. The newscaster was now talking about the colonists at the edges of the empire and hailing them as harbingers of the rebels and the destruction of our way of life. Ainu tried to listen to the newscaster and not think of the note. She had no idea of how it got there or why the nice woman seemed to hate Bill as much as Ainu did, and why did she say that as long as I am here Bill would be an ass. It's hard to control thoughts sometimes, as many an earthling has found out, and the thought police have it very good and show no mercy to anyone they think could turn into a rebel. Ainu hated life in Sector 4 and longed to escape, but she knew she would need help, and she could not help but have these thoughts because of the piece of paper with the writing on it. She hadn't seen her grandmother since she was 6 years old, when her grandmother and her grandfather both went off with a colonist ship to the outer edges of the empire, never to be seen again. She had to stop thinking of her family, or the thought police would be at the door. Oracle or no oracle, she would be tortured just like any other deviant to the state for those types of thoughts. She turned the channel on the television as the news was not helping her control her thoughts, but she longed for meaning in the note from possibly her grandparents. How could it be them? How could they find her? What does it mean? She immediately stopped thinking again and went back into the kitchen and put the kettle on and made tea to distract her mind from these illegal thoughts of family and rescue. Feeling tired from the plant medicine, Ainu decided to lie down on the sofa. She stared at the television and flicked the remote, and the television channel changed to the end of an advert for a colonist's ship to a far-flung star system in the Earth Empire, which made Ainu think of her grandparents again and the strange piece of paper. Ainu immediately stopped her thoughts and watched the television again, which by now had moved on to another banal reality show about nobodies wanting to be somebodies. Ainu opened her eyes. It was dark again. I must have nodded off, thought Ainu. The television was on standby, so Ainu looked at the clock and saw that 4 hours had passed. Ainu heard a shuffle from behind her and a small husky voice say, "My little goddess." Ainu froze and then jumped up and looked at what was a tall man dressed all in black. "My little goddess," he said again. Ainu said, "What the fuck?" and grabbed an empty bottle of cola and started to wave it threateningly in the direction of the intruder and shouted, "Who the fuck are you?" To which the intruder put both of his hands in the air and said once more, "My little goddess, we haven't much time. If you want to live, then come with me." "We don't have time to explain. You know why?" Ainu cried. "Who told you to say that to me? If we explain, we are dead, so decide, my little goddess. Come with me now or stay here forever. Decide now," said the man. Ainu made a split-second decision to follow the man, as she had not thought of those words her grandmother had said to her for 10 years. Ainu put the bottle down and said, "Okay, what now?" She knew she had to act on instinct, or the echelon sentinel would alert the thought police, so time was as short as the need for no thoughts of family and rescue. The man said, "Let's go, my little goddess, we have a car outside waiting, hurry up." Ainu said, "Wait, what about clothes? I have to pack." "No," barked the man. "We go now," he shouted. He grabbed her hand and they both ran out the front door and into the waiting car, which as soon as they were in, tore off down the road. There were 3 men in the car, all were armed with guns, which made Ainu paranoid. What had she gotten into, she wondered, and quickly cut of those betrayal thoughts from the artificial intelligence echelon mainframe's ever-listening ears. The men sat in silence as the car approached Sector 3's checkpoint, where the first man said, "Here, use this ID card and don't look scared." The men hid their weapons and handed over their ID when the car stopped. After a brief pause, the guard handed the ID cards back to the passengers and opened the gate. The driver then drove off through the gate and into Sector 3. Ainu said, "Where are we going to?" Which she was told, "You will find out later." As the car drove further into Sector 3, Ainu could not help but think of the spaceport for the colonists' ships, as that was what was in Sector 3. Could she be going there? She quickly stopped her thoughts from waking up echelon anymore. As far as Ainu was concerned, the banking guild had not noticed her escape yet, or she would no doubt be in pain if not dead. Had she taken on too much risk at her young age, or was this the dream journey she had been dreaming of since her grandparents went off to the stars? The car slowed down and the man in the front passenger seat turned to Ainu and said, "Tommy here will escort you onto the ship to the stars, but it still is not safe for you to think openly yet, so to be careful. We are going to drug you, Ainu. You will fall asleep and wake up on the starship. Don't think any more of this, okay, Ainu?" Ainu nodded and closed her eyes when she saw the needle being put into her hand. It did not take long to take effect and Ainu fell unconsciously asleep. Ainu woke up. It was pitch black, or were her eyes closed? She tried to open her eyes but couldn't. She then tried to raise her hands to uncover what was blocking her eyes, but she could not move her hands. Fear rose up in the 16-year-old Ainu. Where was she? She listened intently and could discern voices talking in the distance. She could hear 4 different voices, 1 female and 3 males. One of the male voices sounded like the man that took her from her home. Who were these people, Ainu wondered. Did she make the right choice in leaving her home with them? She remembered the note and what the man had said, "My little goddess." Was this a message from her grandparents? Were these men and women the rebels? How could they have found her, and what do they want of her? She knew who she was, an oracle of the goddess. Her mother and grandparents had brought her up well versed enough to know that. Minutes passed and turned into about 1 hour with Ainu immobile on a bed with no way of knowing where or who she was with. Suddenly Ainu heard a door open, and 2 sets of footsteps enter the room. "Ah," said one of them, a strange voice to Ainu. Then the other more familiar voice said, "My little goddess is awake." Ainu blurted out, "Where the hell am I and why am I blindfolded?" The familiar voice said, "You are with friends, my little goddess." "Stop saying that," said Ainu, "you have no right to call me that. It's all the name we have for you, friend. You are on a starcraft that is just about to leave the Sol system. Once we get past the sentries, we will wake you up again. Sorry, this pinprick won't hurt too much." Ainu sighed and winced when she felt the needle inject into the back of her hand again. It did not take long for the effects to hit Ainu, and she was out like a log again. Chapter 2: The Rescue. Ainu woke up. She was groggy and felt slightly queasy. She rubbed the sleep out of her eyes and realized that her hands were not tied. This brought her back to reality quickly, as she then opened her eyes to see if she could see. She saw a metal roof with ducting along the corner and a flickering light hanging in the middle of the room. Turning her head to the side, Ainu saw a woman looking at her, smiling. She said, "Hello, friend. Have you a name?" Ainu said weakly, "We have left the Sol system and are heading for a space station where there is a colony ship that will take you to the outer edges of the Empire, the Outlands," the woman said. Then she spoke into a comms system and said to it that Ainu was awake. The woman said, "Sit up, Ainu, and move your muscles about and get the blood circulating in your system again. You have been out for several hours now and will be weak." Ainu struggled to sit up but managed it with some moans. She rubbed her legs and arms and said to the woman, "What's your name?" Then the woman said, "Catalin Ainu. Food and liquids will arrive soon, not to the standards of the banking guild, but it will fill you up and refresh your senses." Ainu could hear footsteps approaching, and the door opened. In walked Tommy with a tray of food and a smile on his face. "Good morning, my little goddess," he said, to which Ainu retorted, "I thought I told you to stop saying that, Tommy." "Ainu is her name," said Catalin. "Ainu it is then. Here, Ainu, some food to fill you up. Eat it all and come in up to the bridge when you're ready." He then handed Ainu the tray and left the room with Catalin, who said as she was leaving, "We are all friends here, Ainu. Don't worry, all will be revealed when you come up to the bridge." After eating her meal, Ainu stood up and stretched her legs and arms. She was all stiff from being immobile and drugged for so long. "Well, nothing for it but to face my destiny," thought Ainu as she headed for the door. She walked out of the door and into a small corridor. She went along it to the door up ahead, which automatically opened as Ainu approached it, and Ainu walked into the bridge to face her destiny. "Ah, Ainu, I do believe. Welcome aboard my ship. I am the captain, Falconer, at your disposal. I'm afraid we can't tell you much about this mission, having not knowing much about it ourselves since it was top secret. So, Ainu, our secret weapon has awoken, has it? Tell us how you feel after eating. Are you still queasy?" "No," replied Ainu. "I feel fine now and need some answers." "Who sent you and why?" "Straight to the point," said Falconer. "Okay, have it your way then. Here's what I know. We were ordered by High Command to go back to the Sol system for a vital mission to rescue a very important person, you namely Ainu. Now this person would be under house arrest but not under any guard watch, as you were vastly underestimated by the banking guild, and so were we, quite frankly. They won't underestimate you or us again, I can assure you. So, Ainu, I don't know who sent for you or why you were sent for, as such information being given to us prior to the mission would have put you at risk if any of us got caught and were interrogated." "Are you the rebels?" inquired Ainu. "The ones and only ones," said a man standing next to Tommy. "We are all on the same side, Ainu. Now in 4 hours we will contact the space station Alpha 1 Bravo, where a colony ship is waiting for you and Tommy to take you to the Outlands, where you will find all the answers to your questions, Ainu." Tommy said, "We have a long journey ahead of us, Ainu, and it could get bloody. The banking guild are aware that you have escaped and have sent a squadron after us. We are 2 hours ahead of them and our ship is fast but not powerful. We could not match them in a fight. So, we must rely on speed and stealth to get us there as quickly as we can. Sit over there and strap in, Ainu, as we will now enter warp drive." Everyone sat down and secured themselves for the journey to space station Alpha 1 Bravo. Ainu's thoughts were racing now. The rebels, the Outlands, and possibly her long-lost grandparents. Was this a dream? Would she wake up and be back in Sector 4? Suddenly Ainu was propelled back into reality and into the chair as the ship initially entered warp drive. Falconer shouted, "Set course for Alpha 1 Bravo, course straight ahead, full steam Boyo's eye, I captain," said the ship's pilot. The ship cruised on warp drive uneventfully for 4 hours and arrived at Alpha 1 Bravo. Alpha 1 Bravo was a marvel in space construction, considering it was the colonists that built her. From scraps of old ships and containers, they welded together a work of art in space that served as the halfway point between the home systems and the outer limits of the Empire and into the outlands. Falconer's ship entered the space station and docked at the bay. Falconer then said, "All right, you two. That's us here. The rest is up to you, Tommy and Ainu. Go forth and find your destiny, and may the goddess bless your path, my friends." With that, Tommy and Ainu got up and left the starcraft and entered the docking bay of the space station. They walked along the corridor and talked of what Tommy knew of the mission. He also explained that the colonists in this sector were supportive of the rebels and that they would be safe here until the colony ship set off for the outer lands. He took her to a hotel where they booked into a room. "We will stay here for a bit until we are contacted by one of our agents. Then we will head for the colony star cruiser, okay, Ainu?" Ainu grunted acknowledgement. They sat in silence watching the television until there was a knock at the door. Tommy told Ainu to stand in the corner as he took his gun out and went over to the door. He called through the door, "Who's there?" to which a muffled voice answered him with what Ainu could not clearly make out, but it seemed to calm down Tommy, who then opened the door and in walked 2 men. One of the men spoke to Tommy and the other stared at Ainu. Feeling uncomfortable with his gaze, Ainu said to him, "Hi," to which she got a one-word reply, "Hi." Ainu listened instead to Tommy talk to the other man. They were arranging transport for 2 people on board the colony ship, and once the talking was over, the man handed Tommy 2 pieces of paper and then proceeded to leave with the man who was staring at Ainu. Tommy closed the door, then smiled at Ainu and said, "That's us sorted, Ainu. We got the tickets, and we can leave in half an hour." Ainu smiled back at Tommy and said, "Okay, then what?" Tommy smirked and said, "We go home, Ainu." Home. Suddenly a loud booming alarm sounded, and Tommy's face went pale. "Shit, what's going on now? Come on, Ainu, let's go, this is not a good sign." He grabbed Ainu by the hand and ran out of the door. Outside, everything was in commotion. People were running everywhere, and Tommy made a beeline for the docking bay. "Come on, Ainu, we must be under attack. That's the battle alarm that's sounding." They both ran as fast as they could run while trying to stop from barging into people going the other direction. They reached the docking bay and Tommy started talking to a guard and showed him the tickets. The guard grunted and let them pass. Tommy and Ainu ran to the colony ship, which was getting ready for an emergency evacuation. The colonists' fighter craft were being scrambled and Tommy and Ainu had arrived just in time to get on board the colony ship before the doors slammed shut. Ainu winced as she heard explosions coming from the space station and wondered what fate awaited them as the colony ship ascended into orbit and flew out of the space station and into the heat of the battle. Tommy led Ainu to a windowed seat in the passenger decks and they both sat down and strapped in with some difficulty as the turbulence from the ship and the explosions from the battle were shaking the colony ship to the core. Alarms were sounding on the colony ship and all lasers were firing at the Banking Guild fleet, which had caught up with Ainu and the rebels rescuing her. A fierce battle was taking place right on the doorsteps of the space station and the rebels and colonists were losing the battle against the Banking fleet. Ainu and Tommy's ship broke off from the battle and tried to head into hyperspace for safe travel out of the battle zone. There were 2,000 colonists on board the ship and the Banking Guild did not care if they were all incinerated in battle if the rebels never got the Oracle. The colony ship, taking damage all the time, slowly entered hyperdrive space and soon the space around them warped into stars, fading into the distance as the ship was hurled by the hyperdrive engine's light years away from the Banking fleet and into the relative safety of outer space. When the colonists' ship came out of hyperdrive, Ainu said to Tommy, "Where are we?" to which Tommy replied, "We are in deep space between the stars. I think the captain just headed to any destination to get us out of the battle zone. Once they get their bearings, they will head for the planet Cydonia, which is on the outer limits of the Empire." Corporate rule is very weak here, and a lot of pirates and mercenaries are here, as well as the colonists, and not forgetting us, the glorious resistance. Do we have a base out here? Inquired Ainu of Tommy. No, Ainu, not just a base but an entire planet. The Citadel, we call her. The home of the rebels, and it will be your new home, Ainu. Once we arrive, I will take you to Section Command where we will be further briefed. Come, Ainu, let's go to the viewing platform at the front of the ship and do some reckon of our surroundings, as it were. Also, I think better with a full stomach let's get some food then check out the views as we travel. They both head for the canteen, keeping themselves to themselves, and have their fill. On the way to the viewing platform, Ainu said to Tommy, I have never been on a ship before. It feels weird, Tommy, to be traveling at this speed, but to be standing still and seeing the stars zoom past us is immeasurable on the senses. Tommy added, space is the great leveler of the soul. Egos have no place in the vastness of space and time. How long will it take for us to reach the Citadel, Tommy? We should be there in several hours, Ainu. Let's go and get a seat in the passenger deck before we drop into hyperdrive again. As the ship traveled to Cydonia, Ainu wondered who had sent for her and what lengths did the rebels go to rescue her, and worryingly for Ainu, did anyone die in the rescuing of her? Ainu put these thoughts aside and instead concentrated on the thoughts of maybe seeing her grandparents again. 2 hours later the ship dropped out of hyperdrive and Tommy said to Ainu that they had to go to the passenger departure deck to get ready to depart. He informed her that they would go to the surface of the colonist planet to a safe house where they would wait to be picked up and taken to the port where they would board a starcraft, and then they would finally go to the rebel planet, the Citadel, the rebel base where they would learn their fate. The planet Cydonia was a small rocky arid world where life for the new colonists would be hard. But the planet has a sizable amount of minerals, so the likelihood of the mining guild being interested in Cydonia is high. This could lead to conflicts with the rebels who have a stronghold in this region. It is also close to the Citadel, and being in the outer limits of the Empire, lawlessness was high with pirates, thieves, and mercenaries abundant in this region of the Outlands. Ainu and Tommy arrived at the safe house. Tommy knocked on the door and eventually a man opened it. He was tall and muscle-bound and looked menacing to Ainu, but he smiled when he saw Tommy. Tommy hailed the man, "Long time no see, Tommy," to which Tommy replied, "Well, Danny, are you going to keep us out here in the full glare of the public any longer, or can we come in?" Danny looked at Ainu and then again at Tommy and motioned them in the house. Inside, Tommy said to Ainu, "Ainu, this is Danny, an old friend of mine. We have had many a scrap together and we could regale you all night long with the tales of our adventures. Danny, this is Ainu, we finally got her." Danny laughed and said to Ainu, "Well, Ainu, it's good to meet you. Come on in and sit down. Are any of you too hungry, as I could rustle up a good curry, Tommy? We have a couple of hours to wait for the pickup, so you might as well have your fill of my culinary delights." Ever the host, Danny smiled Tommy. Ainu calmed down with the friendly atmosphere that she could sense and sat at the table with Tommy as Danny headed off to the kitchen. "Are we safe here?" Ainu asked of Tommy. He replied, "Safe as houses, Ainu. This is rebel-controlled space. We are a lot stronger than what everyone seems to think. The colonists are all supportive of us and the thought police are not in this sector, Ainu. You can think freely again for a while anyway. Until we fix you, that is," he said with a smile. Danny walked back in carrying a tray of drinks. "That's the dinner on, folks. Here, have a beer while we wait." "You old enough to drink, Ainu?" Danny asked. Tommy took 2 bottles of beer from the tray and gave one to Ainu. "She's old enough to be hunted and shot at, so she's old enough for 1 beer. Here you go, Ainu." Ainu thanked Tommy and took a sip of the liquid. It was cold and tasted bitter, but it was palatable to her taste buds, so she took another bigger drink and sighed, "All this travel has made me tired, Tommy. Don't worry, Ainu, we are nearly home. Another couple of hours and you will see the Citadel. It's magnificent, Ainu. Can't wait to see your eyes light up when we first disembark from the ship and you see the horizon on the Citadel," Tommy said. Ainu, it's a sight to behold," interjected Danny as he went back into the kitchen and came out with plates which he placed on the table in front of Tommy and Ainu. Tommy and Ainu continued talking as Danny went back into the kitchen to prepare the meal. After 10 minutes he came back out with a pot of piping hot curry. Hope you like vegetables, Ainu. We don't consume flesh in the Resistance. It's bad for the soul. I was brought up a vegetarian, Danny replied. Ainu, thanks for the meal, Danny. I'm starving with all the travel and everything, so thank you and blessed be. As they talked at the dinner table, Ainu got to know Tommy a lot more. She liked him and felt a good aura around him, so she sensed that she could trust him, and she could tell that Tommy and Danny were very close. She wondered what was it that bonded them so much, and she asked of Danny, Danny, why do you fight for the Resistance? He paused, looked at Ainu, smiled and said, love, Ainu. We fight for the love of the gods, their people, both plant and animal. We fight for freedom. The freedom to think, the freedom to be just who you are. Who you really want to be. Not what some jumped-up corporate stooge or AI machine dictates what you should be. Ainu, we fight for the love of each other and our children's right to thrive and be free. We fight for the Oracle, our spiritual leader. Ainu, you will meet her no doubt, said Tommy. Ainu wondered who the Oracle was. She heard some of the passengers on the colonists' ship talk about her. Ainu knew her grandmother had the gift the same as Ainu. Could her grandmother be this Oracle of the Resistance? Tommy, who is this Oracle that you and others talk about? We have not heard of her on Earth. The Oracle of the Goddess, to give the Oracle her full title. She is our spiritual leader and advisor to the Rebel High Command. I see, said Ainu. Tommy, where were you born? Earth or out here in the Outlands? Ainu asked. I was born on Earth, Ainu. I think that's why I was chosen for this mission. Whereas Danny here is a born and bred Outlander, said Tommy. That's right, Ainu. I have never been to Earth. I have heard it looks beautiful, though, intertwined Danny. They talked as they waited for Danny's phone to ring, and when it did, Danny looked at it and said, that's the pickup, Tommy. Let's get ready. Tommy and Danny got up and Tommy got his bag and told Ainu, come on, this is it. We're finally going to your new home, the Citadel. Ainu smiled and got up as she walked with Tommy to the door, and they both thanked Danny for his kindness and hospitality and said their farewells as they left the safe house. There was a car parked outside with 2 men inside. Tommy got in the back, followed by Ainu. They drove off towards the spaceport to catch the ship to the Citadel.